Hello and welcome to Scaffold Access's latest podcast. I'm Lindsey Anderson, editor of Scaffold Access. Today we're going to dive into the power of emotional intelligence within leadership and how it can be a game changer for productivity, performance, and overall business success. Joining me is Jevon Wooden, a dynamic speaker, author, and leadership coach whose story is pretty much as powerful as his message. From overcoming adversity as a teenager to earning a Bronze Star when he served in Afghanistan, Jevon's journey has shaped his mission, helping leaders create cultures rooted in empathy, clarity, and impact. With over 15 years of experience working across both military and corporate environments, Jevon knows firsthand how emotionally intelligent leadership can transform not just teams, but entire organizations. He's also one of the featured speakers at this year's Scaffold and Access Industry Association Annual Convention and Exposition, happening August 5th through the 8th in Fort Worth, Texas. I recently had the chance to sit down with Jevon to explore why emotional intelligence is no longer optional in today's business world and how leaders can start leveraging it to drive real results. Let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give Cliff Notes version. It's been a lot. It's been a lot, Lindsay, right? But
Yep.
I think that's the story for most of us. We have what we call these inflection points in our lives. You know, my big inflection point was when I was 17. You mentioned some challenges when I was a teenager, and I faced 7 years in prison. I was supposed to be going to the movies, ended up going with the wrong group of guys. I had a friend that we was like, yeah, let's go to the movies tonight. Went with him. He ended up meeting up with two of his other friends, and they ended up going on a joyride, right? So
Mhm.
ended up getting caught up in that and getting arrested and facing that time. I sat in jail for months, and but in that time frame, I think it was meant for that to happen. And the military was another inflection point for me. It was when I got to understand the power that I had as a leader, right? Seeing what I can do, because the military, that's the only job you can get, and they're like, hey, you're going to have to show us something, right? You're going to have to
Yep.
show us what you're made of, and they're going to challenge you. And I appreciated that, right? Because now everything I learned through my 12 years in the army, I'm able to apply to these companies and to these for these leaders. And it's just a great way because everyone is able to connect with that, to just bring it all together.
What is emotional intelligence, and then we can go into the next, how it can impact businesses, please.
Absolutely. And emotional intelligence, in the shortest, easiest, simplified definition, is the ability to process and manage and understand your emotions and the emotions of others. And
Okay.
underneath that bucket, there's really four components. And I like Daniel Goleman's quadrants that he
Okay.
calls them. So you got self-awareness, which is the ability to understand your triggers, your blind spots, understand your strengths, your weaknesses, room for improvement, and everything else, right? And then you have self-management. That's regulating yourself, the ability to filter whatever is happening, no matter what situation you're in, and respond in a rational and reasonable way for whatever that circumstance calls, right? The ability to remain calm, which is hard for a lot of us, right? The
Uh-huh.
ability
Uh-huh.
to, yeah, the ability to pause and really
Yep.
respond intelligently versus react. That's self management. And then you have the first interpersonal piece, which is social awareness. This is where empathy falls in. This is where this interaction we're having comes to play, being able to give you space so you can share your ideas and stuff. And then you have the last piece, which is the relationship management, making it mutually beneficial for all parties involved. This is where leadership and influence and all that stuff comes into play.
What are some ways for, you know, construction company owners, scaffolders, everyone to put themselves in others' shoes, I would say.
Absolutely. And this is a question. I love the question, Lindsay, because I deal with a lot of I come to a lot of associations, a lot of construction companies, oil and gas is the same way. And the beauty of it is, and the beauty of why I have that military experience is because the military is the same culture, right? They're very get it done, very straight to the point,
Yeah.
very no BS, right? We know we have a job to do, we know what to do, there's no excuses, right? So
Yep.
what I will say to those listening is emotional intelligence is a skill. So just like anything else, just like going to the gym to build your muscles, you can get better at it. Just like learning how to do scaffolding and access, you can get better at it. But what you have to do is become aware first, right? So that's why that self-awareness is the foundation of everything. And the hardest part is really pointing the finger at yourself to be accountable, to say, you know what, I realize my blind spots are that I can't give space to people. When they say something I feel is stupid, I just go off the rails. I have no room for stupidity. That's the first step. To admit that that is what is your trigger point. And then to realize, like, okay, that's a trigger, right? It may be a little bit irrational. I need to take a step back to where I can ask more questions. That's the first start. Like, ask questions to see why they don't understand your perspective or see why something is done the way it was done. That is always the first way to pause. Give yourself room to understand more. Because oftentimes what we do is we only see it through our lens. And that's why empathy is so important to say, you know what, I'm a professional. I've been doing this thing for 20, 30 years. So the things that are hard for them is commonplace for me. So we have to remember that, right? Everyone doesn't learn or pick up things or communicate or operate in the same way that we do. So ask those questions to get clarity for yourself. So now you know how to move. Ask straight up, hey, how can I support you? How can I make sure, like, you messed up this last time, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you the clear instructions the way that you pick it up, right? For example. So that's how we have to operate it, and it gives us space. Once we understand how they communicate and how they operate, now we can take it as their leader or as their coworker. It's really on us. It's called extreme ownership, a principle Jocko Willink had created.
Okay.
Extreme ownership is the principle that their success is contingent on us, right? So we have to make sure that we take the time out to understand how best to communicate, how best to lead, how best to support them, so we get the best from them. And I know a lot of listeners are probably like, "Why do I have to do it? I got to work on my own job." Well, you want to perform at a high level, right? So
Uh-huh.
that's the things you have to do. You have to be the
Yeah.
catalyst for that change, so everyone else can start doing it too.
And I think too, a big part, like you don't hear, with business and especially in construction, empathy. You don't hear the word empathy a lot.
Right.
And I think it's so integral to just being a human.
It is.
And how have you, you've been doing this for a while. How have you seen any shifts in the dynamic of people understanding empathy a little more, or obviously bringing it into their practice, their business, their mantra? Is there a paradigm shift here, or are people still learning about the role of empathy and how it can play positively into business?
Yeah, one of the things I like to ask when I get into these arenas with construction folks is, how do you see empathy from a business standpoint? Is it something that you
Ah,
would want in there all the time? Is it something that it can get in the way of you making the business decisions you need to make, or do you feel like it's a waste? And what I've seen is a lot of the construction folks, it used to be that they say, I ain't got time for that. Right? That
yeah,
is not
that's
what I'm looking to do.
yes,
Right? But
yeah.
now it's scaling up to that other option where it's saying like, yeah, it's cool sometimes, but when I need to make a business decision, I gotta remove that. And what my job is, what my plight is to step in and say it's good all the time. Right, because empathy, even if you have to make an authoritarian decision, right, where you have to say, hey, I have to make this decision, we have to do this thing, you can still do it in an empathetic way. And an empathetic way is letting people know the why behind it. Because if they know the why, they operate differently. If they feel like it's a pointless action, they're not going to perform the way they would if they say, here's why we're going to do this. Here's how this impacts you. That's the point of empathy, is to say, hey, I see your hesitation. I see your hesitation in following me on this decision. But here's why we need to do it this way. Right? When leaders do that, that gets buy-in from everybody. And when you have buy-in, you have ownership. And when you have ownership, you have a different level of productivity, and everyone will come together and they'll start pouring into it. They'll start giving you more than they gave you before because they believe in it. Right? So that's the level we have to do. And those who may have some hesitancy about it, they'll be willing to try it out. Right? They'll be willing to say, all right, I see your point. Let me at least try it, right? Or let me ask some more questions and see what I need to do from my end. Right. So that's the beauty of it. So that's why I'm here. That's the whole point of it. That's why
Yeah, no,
I'm
no.
looking forward to talking to SAIA.